In the cornfields of a small Midwestern town, a creature called Sawtooth Jack wakes up every Halloween and tries to reach the local church. The townsfolk know they must stop him to prevent disaster, so each year they perform a traditional ritual known as the Run. During this event, all the town's teenage boys must pursue Sawtooth Jack and kill him before midnight. The one who succeeds is hailed as a hero and is rewarded with a house for his family, $25,000 a car, and permission to leave town, a rare privilege. It's believed that killing Sawtooth Jack also blesses the harvest. Girls are not allowed to participate, and each family can only send one son. In 1962, a group of masked boys sets out to hunt the monster. One of them, terrified and unsure of what to do, lags behind on the road. Suddenly, Sawtooth Jack appears behind him. The boy screams as he is killed. Moments later, the other boys discover their friend's burned body, with Sawtooth Jack standing in the cornfield. Furious, Jim chases after the monster and catches up just as Sawtooth Jack is about to reach the church. Jim beats the creature to death and takes some candy from its body. After the others do the same, they cheer Jim's victory. Later, the Harvesters Guild hosts a Halloween party to celebrate another successful run, and Jim receives his prizes. His younger brother Richie asks to go with him, and Jim simply hugs him and says, "I love you," before leaving town in his brand new car. A year later, Sheriff Jerry arrives at school 5 days before Halloween to remind the teens of the importance of the run by showing pictures from the year they failed to kill Sawtooth Jack, which led to ruined crops. Jim is often cited as a hero, but this irritates Richie, who desperately wants to join the run but cannot due to the rules. Richie's friend Riley mocks his eagerness to volunteer, while the other boys have no choice in the matter. Some of the teenagers doubt that Sawtooth Jack is real, with Bud swearing he saw an adult in a costume outside his window as a child. Riley teases him, which leads to a fight. After class, Riley attempts to follow Richie down the street to finish the fight, so Richie hides inside a movie theater. There he meets Kelly, who is new in town. They talk and hit it off, but when Richie asks her to the Halloween dance, she explains that she can't go because she's black. Richie promises to change the rule if he wins this year's run. Later, Richie meets up with his best friends, Bud and Mitch, who have heard negative rumors about Kelly, but Richie doesn't believe them. His friends also convince him that he's faster than his brother, so he should participate in the run, despite the rules. That evening, Richie returns home to find his parents, Dan and Donna, waiting for him with a postcard from Jim, who they haven't seen since he won the run. Richie informs them that he plans to participate in the run, and an argument ensues, leading Dan to slap Richie. Angry, Richie tells his parents they can't stop him, then escapes through the window to meet up with Jim's ex and spends the night smoking. Meanwhile, in the cornfields, a farmer approaches an empty scarecrow stand and proceeds to carve a pumpkin. He places the pumpkin on the stand, and suddenly, Sawtooth Jack appears, wearing it as a head. The next day, Riley finds Richie and beats him up, stealing his belt, a favorite of Jim's, as the brothers used to wear matching ones. A furious Richie tries to defend himself with a knife, but Riley beats him again and walks away. Richie returns home and finds a letter from his brother. Jim apologizes for not contacting the family sooner and asks Richie not to join the run, as their parents need him. Tired of being treated like a baby, Richie decides to steal a car and leave town. However, as soon as he hits the open road, Jerry intercepts him at the bridge. Richie tries to run away, but barely gets out of the car before Jerry knocks him out. That night, parents lock their children in their rooms to prevent them from running away or hiding to avoid participating in the run. The boys, desperate, bang on the doors and walls, begging for food or restroom breaks, but their pleas are ignored. They must endure this for 3 days, a method to drive them insane and make them eager for the run. Finally, Halloween night arrives. The farmer fills Sawtooth Jack with candy and cuts his ropes, setting him free. In town, the teenage boys are released to begin the run. Richie wakes up in his room and hears Dan offering him a promising future job opportunity, but Richie only wants to participate in the run. Both Dan and Donna try to stop him, but their pleas fall on deaf ears as Richie leaves the house. Meanwhile, Bud, Charlie, and Mitch board a truck to gain an advantage in the run. Some boys accuse them of cheating, but Mitch quickly intimidates them into silence. Richie eventually joins them, but before they can leave, the same boys return and start damaging the truck. Mitch holds them off, while Richie distracts them with food. Finally, the boys drive away. On their way out of town, they put on masks and notice the butcher guarding his shop, keeping hungry boys at bay with a weapon. Other boys throw objects at the truck, accusing them of cheating. When they reach the cornfields, most of the group is excited, but Bud is terrified, still haunted by the day he saw Sawtooth Jack outside his window. Unlike his friends, he doesn't want to go through with this. Suddenly, the truck hits something on the road, forcing Mitch to stop to avoid a crash. The truck won't restart, so they get out to investigate, finding the road empty. Then they notice candy near the cornfield and rush to eat it, believing they've hit and killed Sawtooth Jack. However, a noise startles them, and they turn to find Sawtooth Jack waiting in the middle of the field. The boys run toward him, but within seconds, the monster kills Charlie and Bud. Mitch tries to find their bodies, but is killed too. Sawtooth Jack then stares down Richie, who begins running away. Richie doesn't stop until he finds the empty scarecrow stand, where he's surprised to find Kelly, another rule breaker like himself. To their surprise, Bud comes running by, having only pretended to be dead to escape. He rushes back to town but is refused entry into his own home by his parents, who insist he must be a man because they need the money. As Bud contemplates what to do, Sawtooth Jack appears, chasing him until Bud finds a shelter where some boys are hiding. They demand money to let him in, but Bud has none. The boys argue about whether to open the door, but when they hear lots of yelling, one boy disregards the protests and opens the door anyway, allowing Sawtooth Jack to kill Bud. Nearby, a small child screams from a window as Sawtooth Jack enters the shelter, killing all the teenagers inside in a bloody massacre. Richie and Kelly agree to team up, but realize they need better weapons. They return to town and sneak into Jerry's house to steal a gun and some beer. While inside, Richie is shocked to see his father, scared, and knocking desperately on Jerry's door, but he leaves when no one answers. As Dan searches for Jerry at a neighbor's house, Richie and Kelly steal the police car. By the time Jerry comes out to confront Dan, the kids are driving away, and he can only fire a shot that grazes a window. Richie and Kelly hear a report on the police radio about a monster sighting, so they head downtown. Chaos has overtaken the main street, with teens breaking into stores and stealing food. The butcher tries to defend his shop and even kills a few boys, but they overpower him and beat him to death before stealing his meat. Richie and Kelly are horrified by the carnage, but before they can leave, Riley finds them. He mocks Kelly for being a girl in the run and uses a racial slur. Riley's gang buddy grabs Kelly, but Richie finally snaps and defends himself, beating both guys down and threatening them with the gun. Kelly takes the opportunity to hit them with her club, and before leaving, Richie takes back his belt. Meanwhile, the rest of the boys begin losing control, and some even start killing each other. Soon, Sawtooth Jack discovers a trio wandering alone and attacks again. Not far away, Richie tells Kelly about the bad rumors he's heard about her, but he doesn't believe them. Kelly confirms she did burn down an old man's barn because he was a racist jerk. Richie shares that he misses his brother, but they've only received occasional postcards from him. Kelly admits her parents are dead. Their conversation is interrupted by another radio report claiming Sawtooth Jack was spotted on Oak Street. Unbeknownst to them, the report is fake, part of a trap set by Jerry. When they reach Oak Street, they find a statue covered in blood, and Sawtooth Jack suddenly appears before them. Richie rushes to confront the monster but freezes when he sees Jack wearing his brother's belt. Kelly steps in, hitting the creature with her club, but Sawtooth Jack strikes her back and vanishes while Richie tends to her. At that moment, a neighbor comes out and threatens to shoot them, forcing them to leave. As they return to their car, Jerry finds them and points a gun at Richie through the window. He insults Kelly's parents and reveals that he murdered them when they attempted to flee the town. Kelly becomes enraged and tries hitting him, prompting him to fire his gun, which grazes the side of her head. Richie immediately pushes Jerry away, and the two leave the car to flee. Meanwhile, Sawtooth Jack visits Jim's old house and discovers all of the messages on the walls from the 3 days Jim was locked in his room prior to the run. The monster screams at the sight and burns down the entire building. Dan meets Jerry nearby and informs him that he is unable to complete the task. However, Jerry yells at him, explaining that the year they didn't perform the ritual, he lost a beloved relative. So this town must be brave and do what is necessary. Dan cries, but is unable to fight a cop. A few moments later, they arrive at Richie's house, where Donna appears visibly disoriented as a result of her excessive medication intake. Richie begins asking questions about previous winners, and they all have a similar fate. They either moved far away and haven't contacted their families, or they died in accidents. Richie becomes suspicious and believes Donna wrote the postcards and letter, not Jim. He begs his mother for the truth, but Donna insists on self-delete. Her words confirm Richie's suspicions. The winners aren't living a glamorous life. They're being sacrificed so that Sawtooth Jack can return to their bodies the following year. Kelly wishes to leave town, but Richie refuses, saying that he must put an end to this. The residents of downtown are alarmed by the massive fire that has destroyed Jim's old home. Riley approaches Jerry and tells him he saw Sawtooth Jack nearby, so Jerry pulls him into the car and hands him his gun in the hopes that he will be this year's winner. Richie and Kelly go to the church to wait for Sawtooth Jack and are surprised to see Dan inside. An argument ensues, with Richie calling his father a monster, but Dan swears no parent knows anything until their son wins. The Jerry and Harvesters Guild then swore them to secrecy, threatening to kill them if they tried to flee or revealed anything. Dan wants Richie to leave and let him do the fighting, but he has a breakdown when he learns that his wife has died. The church bell rings and Sawtooth Jack appears outside. Richie rushes up to meet him and greets him as Jim, demonstrating that he means no harm. Unfortunately, Riley arrives and shoots the monster, so Kelly rushes to hit him while Richie holds Jack in his arms. Jerry also intervenes and forces Riley to try again, but after a second shot, Richie deters Riley by threatening him with his own gun. To Richie's surprise, Sawtooth Jack grabs his hand and turns it around in an attempt to end his suffering. Richie apologizes to his brother before pulling the trigger. The boys rush to get the candy, and Jerry congratulates him on his success, but Richie remains numb. Later in the party, Richie remains in a bad mood and ignores everyone else's happiness. When he sees Kelly arrive, he dances with her and kisses her, unconcerned about the bigots who judge them for being an interracial couple. Kelly secretly gives him a gun, and they decide to flee together later. Richie leaves the party in his brand new car, ignoring Jim's ex's request to accompany him. While Richie drives away, Dan approaches Jerry and attempts to shoot him for vengeance, but Jerry knocks him down. Richie picks up Kelly and they begin driving away from town. Soon, Jerry appears in the police car and begins pursuing them, so Richie attempts to accelerate. However, he nearly collides with another vehicle on the road and is forced to stop the car. Richie forces Kelly to hide and exit the car, but Jerry holds him at gunpoint and forces him to walk through the cornfields. When they reach the empty stand, Richie turns around and shoots Jerry twice, killing him. The farmer appears and hits Richie on the head, forcing him to fall into the grave he has already dug. Richie asks for mercy with his knife, but the farmer breaks his hand and begins to bury him alive. After finishing, the farmer leaves, revealing that he was in the vehicle that blocked Richie's car. Kelly is shocked and Dan approaches her, encourages her to leave the town. Kelly escapes without further interruptions after crying her heart out. A year later, the farmer digs out Richie's body and prepares the pumpkin to become the boy's new Sawtooth Jack head. On Halloween night, Dan frees the monster, whom he still refers to as Richie. Dan murders the farmer and orders his son to set fire to the entire town.
I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.